Iran just made one of the most explosive claims in this entire war. They said they fired missiles directly at Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office. And for a moment, Israel went completely silent. No denial, no response, just silence. If you think that doesn't matter to you, stay with me, because what happens next in this conflict could change a lot of things very quickly. And before I walk you through exactly what happened, what Iran said, what Israel eventually said back, and what this all means going forward, do me a quick favor, hit that subscribe button right now, because in the next few days and weeks, I will be breaking down every major update from this conflict and what it could mean for people right here at home. Gas prices, travel safety, global markets. You need to stay ahead of this. Don't get caught off guard. Subscribe now, and I'll make sure you never miss a critical update. So let me give you the full picture, because what you may have seen in a headline or in a short clip doesn't even scratch the surface of how serious this moment actually is. This is not just a Middle East conflict that has nothing to do with you. The ripple effects of what's happening right now are already being felt at the gas pump, in the shipping lanes, and in the conversations happening in Washington. By the time this video is done, you will understand exactly what Iran claimed, why Israel's silence was so loud, what the truth appears to be, and what comes next in a war that has already shocked the entire world. To understand why this moment matters so much, you have to go back just a few weeks. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched a surprise military operation against Iran. They called it Operation Epic Fury. In just 12 hours, more than 900 strikes hit targets across the country. And one of those strikes killed Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. That was the man who had been running Iran for over 30 years. He was gone, overnight. The world woke up to a completely different Middle East. Iran did not sit still. Within hours of those initial strikes, Iran launched a massive wave of missiles and drones in what they called Operation True Promise 4. Targets included Israel, U.S. military bases in Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and more. The war was on, and it has not stopped since. By the time we got to early March, Iran had launched wave after wave of attacks, 10 waves to be exact. And the 10th wave is where our story really begins. Now here is where it gets even more important. On March the 2nd, 2026, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which most people just call the IRGC, made an announcement that stopped the world cold. In a video statement carried by Iran's semi-official news agency, an Iranian military spokesman said that their K-bar missiles, which are some of Iran's most powerful ballistic missiles, had successfully struck the office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They didn't just say his office was hit, they said his fate was unclear. Let that sink in for a second. Iran was essentially telling the world that they may have just killed or wounded the Prime Minister of Israel, a sitting head of government. That is an extraordinarily bold claim. It's the kind of claim that, if true, would reshape everything about this conflict. It would change how other countries respond, how markets react, how the U.S. military postures itself, everything. And for a short period of time after those air raid sirens sounded over Jerusalem, Israel was quiet. No immediate statement, no video of Netanyahu walking around, no denial, just a moment of silence that, honestly, had people wondering. Quick question. Are you subscribed yet? Because here's the thing, most people who watch this video will see this once and move on. But if you subscribe, you'll get notified every time something like this breaks, before it gets buried under the next headline. These updates can affect your daily life more than you realize. It takes 2 seconds. Just tap that button. Now let me tell you what happened next, because the silence did not last long. Netanyahu's office came out and called it, directly, fake news. That was the exact phrase they used. They said Iran's claims were completely false. They confirmed that Netanyahu's office in Jerusalem was, by all accounts, intact. There were no reports of any missile actually hitting the building. Air raid sirens had gone off, yes. But Israeli air defenses intercepted the missiles before they could cause major damage. And here's the reality about how this war has played out so far. Iran has been known, repeatedly, to overstate what their missiles actually accomplish. This is not a secret. Military analysts, journalists, and even some governments have pointed it out. Iran will fire missiles, say they hit a critical target, and then the video or satellite imagery tells a completely different story. It is part of a psychological warfare strategy. You make the enemy and the world believe you're more powerful and more accurate than you actually are. In this specific case, the Iranian spokesman also claimed that Iran had shot down 3 American fighter jets over Kuwait. The United States said that was false too. The U.S. acknowledged that 3 aircraft were damaged, but said they were accidentally hit by friendly fire from Kuwait's own air defenses, meaning Iran did not shoot them down. Kuwait's own missiles hit them by accident. That is a big difference. But here is what most people miss when Iran makes these claims. Even if the specific claim is exaggerated, the fact that they are trying to hit Netanyahu's office tells you something. It tells you Iran's goal is not just to fire missiles at open fields. They are aiming for leaders. They are aiming for symbols. They want the world to see that no one, not even a head of state, is completely safe. That is a message, and Israel heard it. Let me pause here for just a moment. If this information is already helping you make sense of what's happening, imagine getting updates like this every single day. That's exactly what subscribers to this channel get. Clear, simple, no-nonsense breakdowns of the events that matter most. Go ahead and subscribe right now so you never miss what comes next in this rapidly changing situation. So what happened after that denial? Did things calm down? Not even close. Netanyahu appeared publicly the very next day, March 3rd, visiting the site of a deadly missile strike in a city called Beit Shemesh, where an Iranian missile had actually hit and caused real casualties. He spoke publicly. He was alive, he was functioning, he was defiant. He said Israel is not done, and he made it clear that Operation Roaring Lion, which is what Israel named their ongoing offensive against Iran, would continue with more surprises ahead. And Israel has delivered on that. By March 9, 2026, Operation Roaring Lion had entered its 9th consecutive day. The Israeli Air Force was hitting ballistic missile launchers, air defense systems, military airfields, IRGC headquarters, nuclear-linked facilities, and more. The targets were not random. Israel was systematically trying to degrade Iran's ability to keep launching those missiles. At the same time, the United States was running its own operation alongside Israel. U.S. forces destroyed Iranian ships in the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. bombers were flying out of bases in the U.K. And on March 10th, U.S. commanders described it as the most intense day of strikes so far. Nearly every type of military power the U.S. has was being brought to bear. Now here is something that explains a lot about where this war is heading. According to a U.S. admiral, by early March, Iran's ballistic missile launch rate had dropped by 90% compared to what it was on day one. 90%. That means all those waves of strikes, all that effort Israel and the U.S. have been putting in, is actually working at some level. Iran's ability to keep up the same pace of attacks is getting weaker. They're running lower on missiles. They're losing infrastructure. They're losing commanders. But Iran still has enough to keep fighting. And that is the dangerous part. Because on March 10th, an Iranian Revolutionary Guard commander said something chilling. He said that going forward, Iran would only be launching missiles with payloads of 1,000 kilograms or more. That is a massive warhead. They were essentially saying, we may be launching fewer missiles, but the ones we do launch are going to be bigger and more destructive. That is not a country giving up. That is a country choosing its shots more carefully. Before I continue, I need to mention something important. The people who stay informed on stories like this are the ones who can make better decisions for themselves and their families. Whether that's knowing when to travel, understanding why your gas prices are higher, or being prepared for whatever comes next. If you're not subscribed yet, you're relying on luck to stay informed. Don't do that. Hit subscribe right now and join thousands of people who stay ahead instead of playing catch up. Let's also talk about the bigger picture, because this conflict is much wider than just Iran and Israel. When Operation Epic Fury launched on February 28th, the strikes also triggered a new front in Lebanon. Hezbollah, which is a militant group closely tied to Iran, re-entered the fight. Israel launched ground operations in Lebanon as well, and Iran struck targets in countries like Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates. This has become a regional war, not just a bilateral conflict. The Strait of Hormuz, which is the narrow waterway that roughly 20% of the world's oil flows through, became a battle zone. Iran deployed mine-laying vessels there. The U.S. military destroyed 16 of those vessels on March 10th. But the threat to global shipping is still very real. When that waterway gets dangerous, oil prices rise. And when oil prices rise, you feel it at the gas pump. You feel it in the price of groceries that had to be shipped across the country. You feel it in airline tickets. This is not just a news story. This is an economic story for everyday Americans too. On March 8th, something else significant happened. Iran's leadership structure got a major shakeup. Khamenei's son, Mojtaba Khamenei, was named Iran's new supreme leader. This is someone who was not well known outside of Iran before this war. He has no military background that most analysts know of. He's a religious figure. Whether he has the authority and the will to keep this war going at full pace, or whether he'll look for an off-ramp, is one of the biggest open questions in the world right now. Iran's president, Pezeshkian, has reportedly been setting conditions for a ceasefire. He has said publicly that certain conditions would need to be met before Iran would stand down. What those conditions are in full detail is still developing. But the fact that Iran's civilian leadership is talking about conditions suggests there is at least some internal debate about how long this can continue. Real quick, if you're finding this helpful, you are not alone. Thousands of people rely on this channel every day to stay informed and understand what's actually happening, not just the screaming headlines. Be part of that community. Subscribe now, and you will always know what is coming before it hits you. So what does all of this mean for you right now, and what should you actually do with this information? First, understand that the situation is still very fluid. What is true today might shift by tomorrow morning. Iran is still capable of launching strikes. Israel and the US are still carrying out their own operations. The possibility of this expanding further has not been ruled out. So you want to stay informed through reliable news sources, not just social media clips. Check reporting from major outlets that have reporters on the ground. The details matter a lot in a conflict like this. Second, if you have family members or connections in the Middle East, now is the time to check in. The State Department regularly updates travel advisories, and right now, multiple countries in the region are under some level of warning. Do not rely on outdated information. Go directly to the State Department's travel website, travel.state.gov, and look up any country you or someone you know might be traveling to or living in. Take those advisories seriously. Third, if you are worried about economic impacts here at home, understand what to watch. Oil prices are the key indicator. The Strait of Hormuz situation is the pressure point. If that waterway becomes fully blocked or significantly disrupted for an extended period, economists expect that prices here in the US will spike. Keep an eye on news about the Strait of Hormuz specifically. It will tell you a lot about where things are heading economically. Fourth, be careful about what you share and believe on social media. This conflict has already been flooded with fake videos, AI-generated images, and wildly exaggerated claims from both sides. CNN and other outlets actually reported on March 11th that fake AI videos about the Iran war were spreading rapidly online. If you see something dramatic, something that seems almost too shocking to believe, pause before you share it. Check it against multiple reliable sources. This is a moment when misinformation spreads fast and can cause real harm. What you should not do right now is panic. This is not a moment for panic. It is a moment for clear thinking. The situation is serious, but you are not helpless in the face of it. Staying informed, staying connected to reliable sources, and understanding the basic shape of what's happening puts you in a much better position than the vast majority of people who are just seeing scary headlines and not understanding any context. The bottom line on what happened with Iran's claim about Netanyahu is this. Iran fired missiles. They claimed they hit Netanyahu's office. Israel called it fake news. Netanyahu appeared publicly the very next day, and the war continues with no clear end in sight. Both sides have shown they are willing to escalate. Iran still has missiles, Israel and the US still have air power and the will to use it, and the entire world, from oil markets to shipping lanes to diplomatic corridors in every major capital, is watching and reacting. Do not wait for this to become something that lands directly in your daily life before you start paying attention. It is already touching your life in ways that may not be obvious yet. Gas prices, global shipping costs, the conversations happening in Washington about what America's role in this conflict looks like over the next months. These are not abstract things. They are real. And understanding them is the first step toward not being caught off guard. Now you know what actually happened when Iran made that claim. You know what Israel said. You know the real state of this war and the major players still standing. You know what to watch and what to be skeptical of. You have a clearer picture than most people watching the news right now. And that clarity matters. If this video helped you understand what's happening and what to do about it, make sure you're subscribed so you catch the next one. I will be covering more updates from this conflict, including what Iran's new leadership means going forward, what the ceasefire talks actually look like, and how all of this could hit home for Americans. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send it to them. Don't let them stay in the dark. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.